And Tom, remember when we all rented that house down the shore with the bed bugs?
Summer of '78. Carlo, Silvio, Frankie Napoli.
Place up the beach.
Yeah.
Sonny Spence from the Bronx rented it. That's where that hippie kid mysteriously drowned during that party.
Hey, Tom. You okay?
Yeah. You sure, T? You're being kind of quiet.
Well, that's because remember when is the lowest form of conversation.
Tony Soprano hates his friends. Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sopranos sit-down. My name is Jim Scampoli, and I've seen every single episode of The Sopranos.
My name is Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 80 episodes of The Sopranos, and I remember when I hadn't seen any. And what a journey it's been, and we're getting right up to it. It feels like we're entering the final stages where, perhaps for the last time, Paulie is almost killed for being annoying. We will see if it feels like that was the pitch for this episode, which is episode 15 of season 6. Who put this thing together, Jim?
This episode was written by Terrence Winter. That's a name you've heard before. I'm not sure if you'll hear it again or not. It's directed by Phil Abraham, who was worked his way up. He was a camera operator on The Sopranos. Then he was a cinematographer, and this is his television directorial debut. He went on to direct episodes of Breaking Bad, Mad Men, The Walking Dead. What else we got? Bates Motel, Daredevil. So what a nice springboard. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go direct TV.
Very cool. One of these success stories we keep hearing about. Well done. Also, Jack Ryan, Castle Rock, Daredevil. Maybe you said that one.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Feels like it feels like one of those episodes that there's stuff going on, but it's like this feels like maybe one of the last episodes of this kind that we can logically have, because it's like, you know, it's like, let's check what's up with Junior. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the last big Junior-centric episode. It feels like we're tying up what's going on with him. But then, of course, I don't know. I've only seen 80 episodes. Well, how did you find this episode, Jim?
I liked it a lot. It's an episode I was looking forward to watching again, because the "remember when" quote is a thing people bring up a lot. And I wasn't sure if that's like an actual, like, oh, as the old saying goes, remember when is the lowest form of conversation. But I don't know if The Sopranos just invented that or what. Because I kind of get Tony's like take on it here. But then also, think about those times with your buds and you're all doing the remember when. You're having a blast, right? It's a good time. But then when you're on the outside of it, when you don't know all the references and the stupid like in jokes that people are referring to, you're Tony. You're just upset. You're sitting with your plate of gabagool or whatever, and you're just shining your Manson lamps at your friends that you hate. Your friends that are old enough to be your dads, I guess.
I will say I spent New Year's mainly with a bunch of new people I didn't know very well, and who all knew each other from like school, from university or whatever. And from the outside, remember when is even worse. At least
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, at least Tony was there for most of that stuff, you know, and usually he'd love that, but he's just being Tony. Tony's being very Tony in this episode.
Well, what's great too is this is a stretched out version, and there's even like a mimic of the scene in this episode. But the recent quick scene we saw, I forget if it was the last episode or the episode before, where Tony looks in on AJ laughing on his computer in a chat room. It's yes. Like it's you know, swap out Paulie and like stretch that out a bit. And there's even a scene like that in this when he like looks in the window, he's on his balcony or whatever, and he sees Paulie watching TV laughing, and it's the same disgust. Like he doesn't even want to see someone having fun or being content or laughing or whatever. I get there's probably more to it than that, but also people being happy is not Tony's bag right now, especially when he's not feeling it.
Yeah, I thought that scene at first was like him seeing like, yeah, wow, he really doesn't have anything in his life, Paulie. Maybe I should go easy on him. And then he takes him on a boat and almost kills him. So I guess he didn't take that from it at all.
Well, also, kind of to be fair to Tony, like especially even in the clip that we played just at the opening here, he does feel like he's getting a little loose-lipped because he's even like, haha, just like that guy that mysteriously disappeared. And it's like they're just hanging out with like young girls. Like, I know you're not like outright saying you murdered someone, but you kind of are. And you don't know that these people are like, think it's as funny as you do. And I mean, I know we're jumping around, but I love when he catches him at the buffet just talking to some dude.
Yes. Yes, they're supposed to be laying low or whatever, and he just is telling his life story because that's what he does.
But well, and great point too. I think I actually picked it up in the Sopranos session books that I kind of missed at the time. Was Paulie goes through this whole story of being with Tony's dad and how, you know, they got pulled over down in the South or whatever, a couple Italians, and he tells them like, oh, say that you know a guy or your cousin's a sheriff or whatever it is. And it's like, what the reference is like Barney Fife. And it's like some TV show, like I don't know the TV show, but I know the name. Mm-hmm. And then Paulie is of that time and he didn't get it at all because it's like, he didn't have time to watch TV, but in this episode, he's watching Three's Company and he's having a blast. Yeah. So how the mighty have fallen. He went from being a young buck too busy for TV to just cracking up at cheesy sitcoms.
And if anything, you'd think that Tony would go, hey, my dad was a dick to me too. We should relate over this, but not so much. I mean, it's impressive in a way. Like you said, we're jumping around, but in the end there, I'm like, there's no way he's going to kill Paulie, right? Paulie's just being paranoid. And then I'm like, you know, they're looking at the axe or whatever, and I'm like, maybe like it's the last few episodes of The Sopranos. He could kill Paulie here. I would feel like it would be, you know, shocking, but not so out of the blue, just based on what's going on. But I'm glad he didn't, even though it does end with a great shot of Tony just being really annoyed at the way Paulie just keeps going on. Status quo is maintained, but for how long?
Yes, yeah. And so this one, it's kind of like they give some room here. Like Tony wakes up and we're kind of just with him for a little bit. It's not too long, but it's long enough. Well, even just in the beginning when he just wakes up and we're kind of hang on him for a little bit. And then he like goes in the bathroom, like throws water on his face. I'm almost waiting for the White Rabbit song to come in and he's going to go into flashback or whatever, because it just reminds me of that shot from that episode season 1. And then I don't know if he's like immediately annoyed or not, because then he looks out the window and Paulie's coming up. So is Paulie the driver now? Is this a regular thing? Or no, Paulie's just there because of what's going on with the whole they're digging up outside that house, right?
Yeah, I don't that's what I thought too. I was like, maybe this is how things have changed now, but it is because he knows what's going on, and but he did bring up the newspaper, like Tony said. I'm too important, or it's too dangerous for me to go get the newspaper. So it's changing a little bit.
And yeah, so what? Yeah, Tony and his tomatoes. I guess that's like
new, right? Is that I haven't seen that before?
No, tomatoes? I haven't seen that before. I feel like it's kind of like a remnant of the Stop and Smell the Roses Tony, which is like all but gone, but I guess he's still holding on to it. And because I guess it's all about like through here, what Tony just can't be connected, can't be content, because even like these things that come up, like this is yet another thing. What in the first episode of this second half of the season, it's the gun thing, like and that just goes away. And, you know, spoiler alert for the end of this episode, this thing goes away. But I guess it's not about that. It's about how Tony always has to basically be worried that who knows what random thing from 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago might come up and then it's a game over.
Yeah, exactly. And so Carmela touches on that when she's like, oh, we're still doing this at our age, because he goes with Paulie and they check out where they're sort of digging for this corpse. And even as he does have a little flashback, you mentioned flashbacks, where Paulie's there going like, come on, do it, kid. And, in a way, we also had him and Bacala earlier in the season. He's making him do his first kill as a sort of thing of like vengeance against Bobby. And then here he's sort of reflecting on when he first had to do that too. And I think there could be some additional resentment just towards Paulie, and that like this is how he was dragged into this life, even though obviously he's a great fit for this life because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The interesting thing, bringing up the Bobby, how Tony had Bobby go on that hit. I was reading an interview with David Chase where he was talking about it. And I mean, I guess it's kind of like classic David Chase fashion where he's like, they were talking about Tony being petty to do that. And then David Chase is like, no, not really. Because it's like, what kind of mob guy doesn't have a hit on on his belt? Because it's going to keep you from talking. You can't have a guy that doesn't have a murder to be held over his head, so he doesn't talk to the feds. That makes him more part of it. And I know, like, this show, like, there's still the stuff we talked about, and a lot of people's read on it is obviously there, where Tony is like putting that on him as revenge. But I love that even David Chase has to be like, well, no, not really. Like, if you think about it, it's crazy he hasn't killed someone, so he should.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, like you said, it's classic David Chase, because I feel like that's not it at all, but it's just a way of sort of deflecting and going like, well, if you think about it. So we also, after we get a view of that, because they got to go on a road trip. Apparently that's what you do when there's heat, because there's no way they're going to find you in Miami.
Yeah, very true.
So that's when we get started on the other storyline here connected to Junior, who's in this assisted care prison place, like semi, like where, the loony bin, basically. And they've got him on some new medication. And this is always the thing with Junior. You can always say, like, he's on whatever new medication, and then he seems to make perfect sense, and then he doesn't. And that's sometimes how it goes when you get old.
Well, and also to go back to David Chase, the same interview that I read, he was talking about that, and he basically just admitted, like, yeah, kind of whatever we needed to happen. If we needed him to be more lucid for the narrative, he had new medication. If we needed him to be weird, then the new medication wasn't working. It's like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So it starts with he gets an offer from some friends of his who say that if he gets a dentist appointment, they can try to sneak him out. And you never really know if it lands in his brain or not, because it gets brought up again later. But, he's better, but he's not good. And that moves on to the next sequence. Yep.
I was just going to say, I like the reading more here, is that he does know, but he also doesn't want to go. But, like, he can never admit, like, I want to stay here. Although, I mean, I guess he does kind of later. And I guess maybe even the reveal later when he's just, like, eating his candy. And saying like, they're watching me or whatever could be a tip to this. Plus, I do like to call it that's Uncle Pat. That's the guy who owned the farm that Christopher and Tony Egg and Tony went to get those bodies. And at the time, that was before he was going away. I did think it was, and I just thought it was interesting that they were even talking to him, because it's almost surprising, because everyone's like so afraid of how Tony would react. If someone's even being friendly to Junior, because like whether Bobby like showed up to give him back his money and all that.
Well, even if he might be sort of pretending, I mean, later on he's definitely like, the time's not right or whatever. Like, he obviously doesn't know what he would do if he got out. But like, he does say that like Tony owes him an apology or whatever, and I don't think he faked that. And within mind, like, how would Tony react if Junior was suddenly out? That's a good question. Another reason to stay in there, and of course, another reason is he's got such a profitable gambling business going on here. He's got all the buttons. He's got it all figured out, and it is. I mean, it's really well put together, because it's like, I don't know, he's like working within the same brain pattern, so you could believe he would be able to set this up even if he's not functioning at full capacity, because this is his habit. It's so ingrained that he would do it automatically, basically, and he just pulls strings and bribes people and gets this game going in such a hilarious way, and he gets to run this sort of shadow version of what he would have done on the outside,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to say, in general, it's so great to have more time with Junior and have like this, basically throughout the whole episode, because it feels like it's been so long. I mean, we check in with him here and there, and he's such a great character that I love we get to spend some time and see what he's up to here, even if it is like, I don't know if maybe at the time when I was watching it and I'm thinking like, oh no, we only have X amount of episodes left, maybe I would have been like, why are we wasting time at the loony bin? Let's get some mob action. But at least now on the rewatch, because I feel like Junior took such a back seat, which makes sense because of what his character was going through, but I missed him.
I think that ties in with what I mentioned at the start as well. This feels like you can't really have another Junior-centric episode after this. Like, you can have him pop in maybe, but much like Paulie, like, you probably... I mean, I say this, but David Chase just likes to not... go along with any of my predictions, but it feels like you can't really have a big Paulie episode after this going into Tony and Paulie's relationship, because that is like, this is the episode where we're doing that. And similarly with Junior, it's like, yeah, I'm also really glad to get a proper view into what's going on with Junior, considering that soon enough we're not going to have any time left, much like Junior.
Well, and especially the relationship with Paulie and Tony is so weird, because he is like a father figure to Tony, but then he's also a good friend, like one of his oldest friends. But then
he's also his underling.
Yeah. But he's also like he's an employee. But then from Paulie's point of view, which his character, he never gives this off. Like, you could easily play into, I mean, I guess they played into it a little bit when he was talking to Johnny Sack, and that is what they reference a lot in this episode, because you can easily play into the fact that he would be bitter that he was like passed over and not put as the boss or whatever. But then again, like, Paulie seems like such a guy that's like, this is who I am. Why mess with it? I'm this guy. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, they bring up the painting and how like
so
he had him, had him as a general or whatever, and how at the time it seemed like a joke, but then it's like, no, that's actually how he sees you. And I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to get in Paulie's head, to be honest.
Yeah, they have so many great callbacks in this episode. Yeah, with the painting, and then of course with the joke, and the way Tony is so transparent, the way he keeps bringing it up. Like, that was a funny joke, right? Oh wow, man, that Ralph was funny. And or even just the whole fact of like, remember like me, you, Ralphie, and Puss, and like they even named someone else like Richie or something. It's like, oh yeah, all these guys that are dead now, and like most of them had Tony involved some way in their death. Pretty great.
Yeah. And so we get some of that immediately as they're on the road, some of what we were talking about, where at first they're just having a good time or whatever, but it's a long drive, and Tony brings up that crack about Ginny, like, I wonder how he found that out, and just ruins the mood immediately. And we see Junior's poker game actually get broken up there, and we get to get even more of an insight, because it's we see it early, but a lot of it's about Junior's relationship with this younger man who's in there and like looks up to Junior, and how that develops. And that's a really, I mean, it's David Chase, so he would never say like, oh, it's a parallel to Paulie and Tony, but it is a little bit of parallel to Paulie and Tony, right?
Totally. Yeah. And also Junior and Tony, the relationship they did have. And then
he calls him Anthony as well, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, we're not breaking ground here. Well, because even like, and then there's such a early like hint of like, hey, Junior, maybe you don't want to be a father figure to, I believe his name's Carter, when he's already like talking about his dad, and he starts yelling. And well, I like because there's even like a quick hint even before that, like at the poker game when he's getting frustrated at a guy. Plus, I've mentioned before how Sopranos does clueless old people so well. They also do loony bin characters great as well, like the guy that keeps crying at jokes, and people getting, upset and anxious about the buttons, and then the guy who like tells on them. There's a lot of great details and moments the way it plays out.
Yeah, I had a question there, because the the younger guy comes to see him after the poker game is broken up, and Junior's like, here's your cut, here's your taste, and hands him some buttons. And I wonder if the buttons are like a legitimate form of currency moving forward, or if that's an expression of him being like insane. I guess they're like their poker chips, but like, will they continue to be in use? I guess maybe it depends on if the games come back or whatever. But like, when Junior's like, here, take your taste, and he's like, no, I'm good, and he's like, oh, you've earned it, and he hands him some buttons. That seems really insane.
Yes.
But then maybe they actually do use that still. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with the take that it's like, no, this is not like, that's his, at least because he's there for his own reasons, but he's self-aware enough to know that these buttons are worthless. Or to your point, I guess, yeah, if they play poker again, he could use them, but otherwise it's just a bunch of fucking buttons. Who cares?
Yeah, and he's the dealer anyway, but he's not there for like the chips. He's there for like, he just likes listening to Junior's old stories, and he's a cool father figure, and like he has all these wild mafia stories, but then the story he tells here is about how his dad made him walk all the way home and smacked him for not accepting a quarter or whatever from a lady. So life lessons from Junior. Some of them will help you, some of them will not.
Yeah, and it's like you forget sometimes in the moment, like, he's talking about Tony's grandfather. So then it's like also adding dimension to Johnny Boy and how Tony's dad and how he raised Tony. And then, of course, how Tony's raising AJ or just how Tony's fucked up. But yeah. And then what Carter's stories about how he got like a B or a B plus or something. And his dad started geeking on him, or was it an A? Just wasn't good enough.
So back on the road trip, we have Tony and Paulie pulling over. They're trying to, like, Tony complains about remember when later, but he's still like, oh, remember that place we used to stop at? Let's do that. And he wants to relive that nostalgia or whatever and get the same service they got before with steaks and bottles to the room. But then there's a new place. And also, who's the bellboy here? Who's this bellboy?
It is Lin-Manuel Miranda. That's right.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Where's the song, Lin? Come on. You always get a song in, don't you?
Yeah, I was gonna. Did you recognize him straight out, or did you see it after?
I recognized him straight out, and I thought like, "Whoa, cool cameo!" But then, like, I guess he wasn't really a big guy then, so it's not really a cameo. But I thought at least that character would be back and not just be a weirdo who's like, "No, I don't know," or whatever is all he says. But yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, because it's just. I guess he just represents how it's like it's a boring hotel, at least to them, because it used to be a massage place with underage girls.
Cool.
So they're pretty bummed out about that. Now it's just a corny hotel that only has lettuce wraps after 10 p.m. or whatever. They don't have steaks and they have a lame buffet, and Paulie has to load up on donuts and pastries or whatever.
Yeah. And so they have to go somewhere else and
actually they have to go to Buckingham's pub for nachos, and I love that you do see like an empty plate of nachos on the table, so it's like they did have to settle for the nachos.
Yep. And so here they're reminiscing, but Tony still seems to be into it for some of it, and sort of going in, like, this is when we get the story mentioned about when he said when Paulie was tricked into saying a name from TV and got hit by the state trooper. And it's interesting to see Tony's progression here, because he talks about how when he was young he used to threaten that Uncle Paulie would come and get you. So they're just adding another layer there. But then Paulie says he loved you, my friend, and like, I remember the night you were born. And like, Tony just isn't able to, I don't know, process any of it, I feel, even despite all the therapy. Because Paulie even says, like, the night you were born, that's the only time I saw your father cry. And Tony's just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. And then, but he also does bring up he says something about how he wasn't sure if his father like believed in him or something like that. Yeah. And then Paulie's like, well, hey, he put you on the, what is it, like, it's like Willie Overalls is the body that they're hiding from at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it, ties back into the Bobby thing and his first hit. And, Tony's trying to protect his son from having to do that shit. It's not it's Tony obviously is like happy. At least it's for Tony. The Tony of now is happy with what he has, because he's got the big house and he's the boss and all that shit. But obviously, you know, a big part of this show has been about how he wished he could have maybe not been this person. He could have maybe been Kevin Finnerty, I guess.
Yeah, and yeah, we see a lot of Kevin Finnertys in the hotel, like just people on business wearing their suits and going to conferences or whatever. It looks like at this boring hotel, and that's when we get this thing where Tony's annoyed about him just talking about his car or whatever to some random guy, and they steal a bunch of Danishes, as you mentioned, or Paulie does.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, we've all done this, but usually you'd stop while you could still fold it up, you know? Maybe just get a couple in there for the road, or is that just me, Jim?
Yeah, he loads up a cartoonish amount, I guess a Paulie amount of Danish, because he's going overboard. And what are they going to do? Tell him no? Then we have Carter gets a visit from his mom, and Junior's there, and it's like this awkward moment because he just kind of hangs out and talks about his medication that makes him salivate.
Yep.
And he brings it up again just to hit home the fact that he's an old man that does stuff like that still. And yeah, I like it because, you know, Carter does, like, he thinks it's cool that he hangs out with Junior, but, you know, we don't know a lot about his mother or his family besides like the story he told and kind of the vibe of him being where he is. But I don't think anyone would be excited to be like, oh yeah, you're hanging out with this guy all the time. Sweet.
Yeah, and he's immediately mad about it, and like, you told me to get friends when I was at MIT, and now when I finally do, like, you say it's a bad thing, and he just rushes off. He's got a lot of anger, this kid, as we'll see later.
And this dude, the actor, shoot, let me look up his name, because he ended up being in Lost after this, and I think they were saying like J.J. Abrams saw him on The Sopranos or something, and we got him on Lost, and then he's in Star Wars. Because he's boys with JJ, and I've seen him pop up in a few other things, and he's always good. He's always good and stuff. Yeah, Ken Leung,
for sure. So then we have the road crew arriving in Miami, I guess, and yeah, they get a call, find out from Syl that they found the guy, ID'd him, and that, and yeah, just kind of settle in and do nothing, which Tony is really great at stirring up conflict when he has nothing to do. I feel like when he's like got a goal for something, he'd be like, fine, like we're gonna go do this, and they do like some deal, and he does fine there. But then as soon as it's like, just sit around and, you know, don't think too much, and then that's when he starts making conflicts with everyone around him.
Yeah, and to what you were talking about before, I mean, Tony's mood does basically change after Paulie brings up his dad and how his dad like trusted him with the Willie overalls hit. And I mean, I'm sure it's also just it gets old after a while because he has been spending more time with Paulie, so it starts off fun, telling these old stories, and it gets more and more annoying. But like the big change is when he brings up his dad. At this point, he's pretty upset with Paulie because he even tells Syl, like, you know, Paulie won't shut the fuck up. And he looks at him, and Paulie's cracking jokes with like the bellhops at the hotel, laughing really loud, just having a good time. And I guess they do have a quick, we kind of glossed over it, but I mean, obviously the big contrast, and it's even spoken throughout the episode, is how Paulie has nothing. Like, because, you know, even when they're showing them packing, Tony's like with Carm and they're talking about stuff, and he's in his house. Paulie's just like looking at his different white shoes by himself packing.
Yeah,
so,
his identical shoes.
Yeah. So this is like fun. This isn't like I'm running away from my life, I might be in trouble. This is a legit, hey, I'm going on vacations with my best friend. This is cool.
Sad stuff. So I have a question, Jim. What did Dick Cheney do with a gun? What is this? Because I was going to Google it, and then I was like, I'll just ask Jim.
No, yeah, because Dick Cheney had a hunting accident. So this is like hilarious reference to that, because he like shot his friend or something. Let me pull up the specifics, but yeah, in 2006, yeah, Dick Cheney accidentally shot Harry Whittington, a then 78-year-old Texas attorney, with a shotgun while participating in a quail hunt on a ranch in Riviera, Texas. Both Cheney and Whittington called the incident an accident. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of like conspiracy theories that maybe it wasn't. There was more to it than that. But yeah, hilarious way to use that and compare it like the way Junior's comparing it to I too have had a mishap with firearms or whatever the way he phrases it.
Great stuff. Yeah, so he's having his little helper write out that letter. He's dictating it, and then the orderly or whatever comes in, and he's got a bunch of pictures for him to sign. And I was like, at least impressed that he can still sign his name fancy. Like it doesn't look like shit. So but he even seems like he's aware enough to see the absurdity in what he's doing, like just a sick fucking world as he's like signing these things to go on eBay of his like mugshot. Basically, it is an absurd thing that's happening.
The autographed picture, and then we have Beansy, who we remember. Yeah, he actually, this is canon. He went down to Miami after Richie backed off over him and then put it in drive, or however he phrased it. And he's in the wheelchair, and he does mention he has to empty his bag at one point. And Paulie's like, "Oh, Maron, empty his shit bag," like he can't handle it. But I love the quick, he brings him the Cleaver hat, and he asks him for the DVD. Like he's kind of like, "Oh, cool, the hat," but what about a screener? Jesus, come on, Tony.
Yeah, which is also like, just be happy with the hat. You probably like the hat better.
And I mean, because even at the time, I didn't really think of it till after. It's like, well, of course, Tony doesn't want to give the DVD because he knows it's like a shitty version of him in the movie. So, the movie's cool, but don't watch it.
Yeah. And it's like, Beansy wasn't there for the premiere, I assume, so he hasn't even seen it. So why would he wear this hat? But I guess, it's a kind of a shitty gift to bring. Meanwhile, Beansy brings a gift that's more like, hey, we can make some dealings with some guys who got a truck or whatever, which is always, business just seems to crop up wherever Tony goes, whether it's with the Canadians, people down south here. He's got a network working for him, or so it seems.
Yeah, these things just fall into his lap. It's like, oh yeah, another opportunity. And also, they pull out the pictures here, and we see like a young Paulie, and he's got his slick black hair, no wings. He's got he's flexing. Yeah. And as we see, like I think Beansy mentions later, like his image is one of the things he has, and it's fading, like it does to all of us. Time is making that fade away.
Yeah. For sure. So Junior gets a phone call reminding him about the whole plan to get him out of there, and he says the time's not right. I'm being watched, which is technically true, but he's just using the truth to try to avoid having to deal with this even happening. Because of course, where would he go? A safe house? Like he doesn't have connects anymore. He doesn't have anything.
He doesn't have connects. I mean, I know he's got a little he's got cash flow from whatever he's dealing with here, and I guess selling these eBay pictures or whatever. I guess some people must be kicking up something to him still, but I love how most of the time when we cut to him when he's in his room, he's always eating Kit Kats because they got the candy connect. But I like that detail, and then he has to kind of make up an excuse because what's the point? He's got a cushy gig, all things considered.
Yeah, or at least he does at the time.
Yeah.
So Beansy and Tony and Paulie have dinner with some ladies, and I think this is where we get the quote from the start of the show. Remember when? And then he goes dancing with this lady because he's kind of like, fuck this.
Yeah, they're eating lobsters, just like old gross men that are wealthy, and they're just hanging out with these young girls.
I wasn't even born then.
Yeah,
because fun reminder.
It's so funny because it seems like they should be the ones kind of annoyed with these stories because they're talking about, remember the house with the bed bugs back in '78? And I mean, I guess at the time of this, it's supposed to be 2007 or 2006. So it's like, Jesus, no one wants to hear about a house with bed bugs in '78. Oh, but we made that guy disappear. You ever get that chick Tourette's?
Yeah. Oh God. So Phil Leotardo is So last episode ended with us going like, oh shit, Phil's back in town. He's gonna do it. And this is basically a drama in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Where this episode, he's clearly like decided he's gonna do the thing, but then we see Doc is the boss and he's being a dick to Phil, sort of reinforce. I think the decision's already made there. Phil's just kind of putting up with it for now, and then at the end he has him taken out. Or did you read that any differently?
I think I could read it that way. I could read it even maybe like maybe it would still maybe he wasn't gonna quite make a run for boss, but he was gonna make sure like at the very least he was gonna be more decisive, and like even if Doc was still the boss, he was gonna be one of the top guys. You know, maybe he didn't make the full decision, but when Doc eats off his fucking plate and like
Oh yeah.
it's like that just shows you how like the Sopranos has trained you, like from watching, 80 episodes, whatever it might be, like something like that, maybe in another show or just in general, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. That's kind of a weird thing to do. But with the way we've seen that things get kind of high schoolish and like very alpha male, it's like, I love that as a viewer. I'm like, Doc, you fucked up, dude. You think you're a little bit more powerful than you are. It's such a smart, great moment to kind of just tell us all we need to know of like where things are going to head.
For sure. And I feel like things are equally high schooly in this. I don't know if asylum's the right word, but Junior's got this rivalry with a professor who wants to play chess all the time. And he's sitting down, and the professor comes up just to grab the chessboard, and he makes a fair enough point there that like you only like antagonize me when there's people around to stop you from doing anything. But I feel Junior's enough, like he's at that point of like he's disconnected enough from, he doesn't understand what he's doing enough that he does that because it's comfortable, much like staying there is comfortable, and then he can be like a dick to this guy as long as that's comfortable. But when he calls him on it, he like those eating off your plate instincts kick in. And he goes like, oh, well, I guess I gotta make an example, like Tony beating up his young virile driver just to show he's a man. He goes ham on him, and his protege loves it, and he yells at him, get him, or whatever. And Junior gets to feel strong there for a moment.
Yeah, because it's like we get to take this more, earlier in the episode with the way the card game is and with the buttons and the fact that they're excited they got like soda with sugar in it and candy. So it's more of like a, parody of what he had before, but at least it's something. And then this is like, oh no, this is like the real Jersey is here. And like the glimpses of Junior's legacy. So that's like a nice classic mob moment. He gets to kick the shit out of the guy and everyone gets to freak out and be impressed. But poor Junior doesn't get to end in victory, I suppose.
Yeah, because that is what leads to his orderly guy being kicked off the staff. And then they change his meds as well. So 2 moves to basically neutralize him or neuter him even. So yeah, it all goes downhill for Junior from there.
Yeah. A quick shot of Tony talking to Hesh, and apparently he needs to float him. He needs to get some cash floated to him. Something to do with some bets. Maybe they didn't go the way they need to go. Just a quick little detail there for you.
Is that 200K he's asking for? So
a
fair amount. Yeah, I guess. I mean, the season started with Tony like, I think at the very start of season 6, he's eating expensive sushi. He's got this big ass boat, Stugatz too, and everything seems to be going great. But I guess it's the thing with all rich people, it seems like, based on TV, they just don't have it as good as they seem to have it because of that lifestyle, man.
Yeah. Yep, he's living life on the high, and plus sports betting and whatever the hell fuck else he needs to do. Of course, then he's got a young girl shows up, so even more like the old Tony. He's back to his old ways, cheating on Carmilla. And then they kind of have to try to have a conversation where, that
Paulie?
guy with the gray hair, I thought he was your dad. Oh yeah, he used to work for my dad. And it's just kind of like, yeah, what do you do now? Like you said, he he has sex with this girl, and then he's just like hang out with her, smoke a stove, cigarette.
Yeah, he says he's an old but it is almost like she has to bring it up because it's a Paulie episode. Like I feel like she would have had other things to talk about, but maybe then again, Tony wasn't making much conversation at dinner, so it's kind of on her to drive this convo. But yeah, the guy with the white hair thingies, as she says. But he does say then that like there are times he wished that Paulie was his dad. And later he's gonna almost kill him for no reason.
Or man, maybe he would want to kill his dad if his dad was still alive. Did
Great
try
point.
to kill his mom.
That's true. So back with Junior, he's like knocked out of it. And as his protege says, this is all bullshit. They just got you on these meds to sedate you and take the fight out of you or whatever because of what you did to the professor. So, you know, we'll see that play out later where he distracts them so he doesn't have to take his meds. But then I'm just skipping ahead here. But then he lets himself
because it'll keep cutting back and forth. So yeah, we can kind of hit the beats.
Yeah.
I do love that he's passed out, but he's got his letter back from the Dick Cheney's office where it's like, you know, unfortunately he can't respond to every letter, but like we appreciate you writing in. And yeah, he talks about he has no pep. They come up with a scheme where he can skip his meds, but then he ends up pissing himself because he tries to get up to go to the bathroom, but they want to hear one more joke. Yeah. And he's I forget the specific jokes he tells. He tells great jokes the whole episode. You all know this.
Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, and then he pisses himself. So not that it's as important as, you know, being in front of other mob guys, but he had this victorious moment where he showed his strength to everyone when he beat up a guy. But now he has this low moment in front of the crowd where he pisses all over himself. But it's also a nice key that shouldn't be happening based off of his medication. Yeah. So they start I forget what they threatened him with. Like basically they would move him somewhere else potentially, maybe like a worse facility, or they have him like on lockdown or something like that.
Well, I assumed that it would be like it's this, or you can go be the crazy guy in just prison or jail or what have you, because if you're not cooperating with the treatment here, then there's no point in you being in this facility, and we'll just put you there. So you can either do that, and also you will keep pissing yourself, or just take your fucking meds. And I think it's it's obviously a combo, but the moment, like you said, of humiliation there is enough for him to go like, whatever, I'll take the meds. And that is not something that his protege likes at all.
Yes. Yeah. We do have in between that, Tony and Paulie go to meet the guys where they're going to be, you know, working on a deal with some stolen merch, whatever it could be. The guys show up late. They show up pretty deep. Paulie jumps right out of the car, ready to square up. And we do see later on that Tony's like pretty impressed by it. Like he's like, you know, it's fucking hothead, because Paulie just does jump out and he's like just starts marching right towards them immediately by himself. Yep. I'm trying to see if I had any other notes on that. And yeah, basically like the details, they're trying to work on this deal, and they're going to send containers up to Jersey. They unload them and then they load them up with some other stuff, send them back. You know, it could be a long term. This could be the start of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, it seems pretty good for everyone involved. Maybe Tony, even though he does say like when Paulie jumps out, he's like, "Ah, God damn it," or whatever. But he gets it like Paulie's the bad cop there, so Tony's like, you know, we can do this, but this includes shipping, and you know what, we'll send it back, and yeah, everyone seems pretty happy with all of this, so it all worked out. And then when they call him Tio, I thought he was gonna go nuts, Paulie, but then I was also like, wait, because he like when the guy calls him Tio, which means uncle, as we know from Breaking Bad, and he like slaps the guy's cheek, and then I thought that would be the thing that would pop things off, but no, they all seem kind of cool with it, I guess.
Yeah, everything's good. Or it's just like nice. Okay, we're friends now.
Yeah, it worked out.
Let me see the med dump, and then we cut back to Beansy and Tony. And Tony's talking about Paul. He's always yep. And they do another good reference here to Gary Cooper. So it does show that it's like being around Paulie too much is destroying his image of Paulie, like his strong silent type. But he's this guy bullshitting all the time, but he's also talking about how he's impressed that he was a hothead and the way he like just, barreled out of the car. But then he starts getting into like how he's maybe a little concerned with the way he runs his mouth all the time, it's interesting the way all of a sudden he's basically talking to Beansy like, oh, maybe I'll kill Paulie because he talks too much.
Yeah, and he says, like, has he ever really been put to the test? And he brought up the joke earlier, but that was kind of just to show that it was on his mind. But now he really starts thinking, like, the joke, he was leaking information and maybe he should die.
Yeah.
But so we see Beansy's family or his wife or whatever as well. So that sort of is a reminder that's when they bring up that Paulie really doesn't have anything. And yeah, then he gets a phone call saying from Syl, like, just like at the start of the season or the part 2 of the season, it all just went away. It's fine. It's grand. Don't worry about it. He pinned it on Jackie Aprile.
Yeah, because I guess it's Larry Boy. Because Larry Boy is one of the guys that got arrested, I believe, when Junior got arrested. He was in season 1, and then when Junior got arrested at that time, Larry Boy also did. And then I think they mentioned at one point that he had he's the guy they mentioned that had plastic surgery, or he got plastic surgery just before he got arrested. And they make a joke about that, but he comes up again. But apparently he's doing the old big pussy route where you give him the misinformation. Remember, Big Pussy was like, this misinformation thing could work.
Yeah.
And apparently it is, because he gave him a body, but he put it on Jackie Aprile, who we know passed away in season 1 of cancer. So no harm, no foul. Just Jackie Aprile's good name. That's all.
Yeah. And he'd probably love to take credit for that. Why not? It's Jackie Aprile. We have Tony. He sees Paulie watching TV, laughing, his very annoying laugh. And like I said, at first I was like, he really doesn't have anything. Because that's the previous scene when him and Beansy are like, oh, wow, he really, he's got an empty life, a sad life. And then Tony looks at that and goes, we should go out on a boat. And Paulie's immediately like, a boat, huh? And then the show makes it super obvious with like editing in stuff, which is fine. I don't really mind it. But it is like, yeah, okay, we get it. He's very nervous.
Well, we've been very critical when shows do this in the past. Like a recent one that pops to mind is Stranger Things. I don't know if people out there watch Stranger Things, but I guess it wasn't even that recent, because like Stranger Things season 2 or Stranger Things 2, they did
it in the third one too, though.
I think they would dump in these flashbacks and sometimes the stuff during the season. Now in Sopranos defense, this is now season 6. But it's been like, at least 5 years, maybe even more, since those episodes aired because of the breaks they've had. So I'll give them a little bit more leeway, plus kind of thematically, and it's more in Paulie's head, flashing through his mind, so it works. I do want to back up a little because he's talking to Silvio about how like what does he mention? He's just mentioned that he's kind of waiting. Yeah, you got to wonder what's next. So like he's getting this good news, but he is still like he's not going to be content with it yet, which I guess I understand because we did just see it in a few episodes ago. One thing popped up, so it is kind of like hard to be comfortable because there's always this idea that either one of your friends is going to murder you or the police are going to show up. But and going back to Paulie laughing, I read it more as he was annoyed with him, but maybe I was just putting that scene when he was annoyed at AJ. I read it almost the same way because he's on the balcony, he's kind of got like a little smile, and then he kind of hears the laughing and he's like, what is that? And he has to look over and see Paul, and he's like, oh yeah, this guy I hate.
No, it could definitely be that. And in connection with like Tony's at the top, he's always worried about the next thing coming up. And Paulie's being a bit too much of a happy wanderer there, just enjoying a moment, enjoying life, where Tony doesn't really fully enjoy anything. Even when he's told like, this will all go away and you're going to be fine. He still has that anxiety hanging over him. So the fact that Paulie can enjoy something that simple is like, well, I better take him on the boat and see if I feel like killing him. Yeah,
and we had already went over this Junior stuff, like where he pisses himself. But I do want to call out. It made me laugh every time he kept calling Jameel Hamill or whatever he calls him.
Right.
He kept saying like, talk to Hamill about this, or I forget how he says it, but they correct him and he still keeps saying the wrong name, which I love.
Great. So.
Because it's more junior stuff. We kind of went over this, and then he does disappoint Carter because Carter tries to do their old bit where he distracts him, but then he sees that Junior takes his medication. And he's like, you don't even care. Like, I'm helping you. I could have got in trouble and you don't give a shit. So here it is. It's his dad all over again, just using him. He thought they had more of a better relationship. He was his boy.
Yeah. And that doesn't turn out well either. But first, a situation that doesn't climax in violence out on the boat where, when they were sailing off, I was kind of like, oh, Paulie, what are you worried about? It's going to be fine. And then immediately it's like, oh, it's probably not going to be fine, though. And they do a pretty good job of building the tension because you can see that Tony is like, he's looking at the axe or whatever. He's thinking about stuff. And Paulie's also, there's a lot going on between the lines here about, well, not really between the lines. Tony's just outright saying, you told him about the joke, right? And he's saying that he should get himself checked for Tourette's and all this shit. So it's a pretty harsh power move, all of this. But he doesn't go all the way. Why do you think it ends up the way it ends up?
That's hard to say. I don't know why he decides not. I mean, maybe just in the moment he realizes like, oh, well, what am I going to do? I'm just going to, because he looks at the knife or whatever. He's like, what? I'm just going to stab him to death and then toss him overboard. I think it's just like the feasibility becomes like ridiculous. And then I guess maybe that's why he keeps bringing up the joke, because he just wants that little extra thing, extra thing to push him. Like he's that close to it where even if he just admits to the joke, which didn't really end up amounting to a whole lot, it was a little stress at the time and it, didn't fully help him and Johnny's relationship, but it all seemingly was kind of innocent in the end. But if he had just had that extra little push, then maybe he would have went for it.
Yeah. And I think maybe part of it could be too that it's maybe enough for him to see Paulie sweat and see him so unhappy, because where does he get off like making bellboys laugh and just having a good time with the TV or whatever when Tony's not happy? So just squeezing him enough where at the end there when he's like, oh, come on, you told that joke, right? Come on. And he's just smiling at Paulie, just looking at him totally miserable, and Paulie can't even eat. He's got a stomach thing. He says it wasn't him. And Tony's like, oh, yeah? No, really? Oh. So you're right. Maybe if he'd said, yeah, I did it and I'd do it again, maybe things would escalate. But just seeing that pain is maybe enough, because Tony loves spreading pain around him. And I will say as well, it's great shots, because the water's waving, so you can see them like in close-ups that are quite steady, but it seems like the sea is coming up and down behind each of them, so everything's made to feel really unsteady. And then physically, like when he, you think he might be actually stabbing him, but he's just tossing him a beer. It's a great way to end that scene.
Yeah, the way the boat's moving with the close-ups and the water keeps coming in, and just the fact that Tony has this huge plate of pasta, it's like, who the fuck could eat pasta at that moment? Because Paulie makes these huge plates, and they got a big piece of bread with it too, and it's like, it looks delicious, but in that moment, who the fuck could do that? It's the way the tension builds, and then when he throws the beer at him, he's like, oh, that hurt, T. Like, he is kind of, I guess, taking him down enough of a peg. I think you're right. I think there's something there.
And you gotta say, it's a very gifable moment as well, of him with his pinky out eating that pasta, just smiling. No, really? You didn't do it? What a great gif.
And then the scene before that is when Junior calls Carter Anthony, when he's trying to give him Hootie and the Blowfish CDs, I think he says. It might have been Hootie or something like that. Dave Matthews Band, who knows? But yeah, I do like the quick, like the knives, the knife shots, and he looks at there's some sort of like tool or something. I assume he's thinking he could smash him in the head with that. So, and then what they transition to, before they transition back to Paulie, we have Junior. They're singing "Country Road, Take Me Home," like they're all singing it, and even Junior's doing it.
Yeah,
and Carter's trying to like make a joke out of it, like you're in class throwing stuff at the teacher with their back turned, and Junior's like, "What are you doing? We're singing Country Road," and that just puts him over the edge, and he whoops his ass.
Yeah, which is believable, I'd say. And he loses the one kind of friend he has in there remaining, and it's jumping ahead, but we like the last shot is just them bringing pets to this place, and he's just there stroking a cat, all beat up with his sellotaped glasses and everything, and it's really like he doesn't even get to run his fake poker game anymore, and now he's on all the meds, and what a great end for Junior if this is the end.
Yeah. Then we have Paulie's dream.
Yeah.
But when it comes in, I mean, it's not as apparent that it's a dream, except for I forget what he yells. When he comes in, he yells something, and I was like, who's he talking to?
No, exactly. That's what I was thinking, that I kind of copped on that it was a dream, because he's like, what does it take to get something to eat? And I'm like, we have talked the whole episode about how he's alone. He does not have someone at home cooking for him, except he does, and it's Big Pussy, and yeah, it's definitely a dream.
Yeah. Big Pussy's making food in his kitchen. And then what does he ask? Oh, when my time comes, tell me, will I stand up?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Is that because, Pussy tried to sit, or no? What did he stand? I'm trying to remember. Or he tells him not in the face. Oh, well, I thought he actually is like, hey, can I sit or something? Because isn't he like all sweaty? And then they just start blasting him, and he falls over. If I remember,
that might be it. I don't remember. I think that maybe I am just mixing it up with other scenes, but I also remember loads of scenes where people are just begging for their lives. And I guess that's what Paulie wants. He wants to know that if he's in that situation again, but it goes all the way, will he take it like a man? Or will he fight back? Or like at least not just, beg and plead and whatever. But it's all subconscious.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not about literally standing, but I mean, I guess thinking back on it, because Pussy does just say, hey, please, like, not in the face or whatever, so he kind of takes it with a little bit more dignity than some of the other people we've seen, but then he immediately hits those weights. He's got to get those muscles back. And he sends over a super expensive espresso machine because the coffee machine wasn't working when he initially came at the start of the episode.
Yeah, and I do love that Carmela's like, that's so expensive, what's wrong with him? And Tony's like, what's wrong with him? Nothing. Like, he's my best friend and good buddy and father. Like, he's the one reason we have this lifestyle or whatever.
It's perfect that it works. Like, that's what Paulie was looking for, and it did work. It worked on Tony.
Yeah. And then, of course, we got, what's his name? Doc. He just appeared to be annoying and to be like a guy for a minute so that Phil Leotardo could take power. And Phil Leotardo does, because he gets shot up like crazy. So now, obviously, we count Doc on the counter. Do we count his associate as well? Because he's with like a guy that also gets shot. That's a good question, Jim. I believe. Let me take a look. I'm peeking at the scene. There's one guy who runs away, definitely, though, right? One guy runs away, but there's a guy behind Doc that's going to get in the passenger seat that they all... I guess we got to count both, huh? Yeah, you know what? I'd say we count it. Do we count Willie Overalls in the flashback? No, because he was never... Well, it's tricky, isn't it? Because he didn't see him in the flashback. Yeah. Shit. You're right. But do we see him, or do we just see a gun? I think we see him, but I don't know if we see him when he's alive or dead, because he definitely gets like covered in dirt in the flashback. Yeah. And I think he's maybe whimpering or something, but I don't know that it's... Hang on, I'm going to try to find it just to get some clarity on this one. Yeah, same here. I want to take a look. Let's see what the scene looks like. I don't think we see him before he's dead, so I don't know. It's... Oh, no, we do. We do. He's on the ground, shaking, holding his hand up with blood on him, and then the gun fires. I don't know how we couldn't count it with those things considered.
So okay, we got to count 3 then.
That's 3. Yeah, let's do it.
That's 3. All right, hold on. Let me pull up our counters here.
Yeah.
Gatsada Malanga! Gatsada Malanga! Gatsada Malanga!
So worth it. Now, this is why we're the Sopranos podcast that you
Yeah.
listen to. That's
We
a
are
sweet, sweet clip.
Yeah, the podcast. But hold on. Fuck, I gotta pull up my counter. I don't think I have my counter open.
Oh, well, it was at 69 previously. So 69 plus 3 gets us to 72 deaths and still only 17 walkouts.
So yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yep. So yeah, 72. Got them on the official counter. 72 to 17. I think there's still time. There's still time for a comeback. Don't ever count the walkouts out.
Would have to be some sort of montage at this point. But yeah, the final shot there, it's just all the people who we've seen play poker and whatnot, petting various animals, and now it feels like Junior's he's just one of them. He's got a crazy story, but who in there doesn't have a crazy story of how they ended up there? Am I right?
Well, real quick before that, Tony goes to the Bing. Nothing really happened. Well, I guess Paulie's just in the background still telling stories. Huh?
Oh, yeah, good point, yeah.
I mean,
that's what I was referencing at first. It's such a great thing because it's like, in that moment, he's got to be like, should have fucking stabbed this guy.
Yeah, because beforehand, he's like, his way of, he gives us our way of life. He's a soldier. And then, 20 minutes later when he's at work around him, he's like, oh, fucking this guy. But yeah, and then as you said, the ending shot, which, animal therapy, that's great.
That's a real thing. It works.
Yeah, it's got to work. Because, just having a pet, it helps me. But yeah, and then a nice shot of Junior. And, much like James Gandolfini, or, tons of great actors on this show, but Junior giving a lot with, just the facial expression and like staring blankly ahead. Great stuff.
Yeah. Petting a cat despondently, empty look in his eyes. Good stuff. Now, we are coming up on the end here, so if you're looking for coverage of other TV shows, just to keep you going, there's a lot more to be found at showswhatyouknow.com, where we go through all manner of television shows. We also have, as you've probably noticed, because we won't shut up about it, we have Blank Meets Blank, the show where me and Jim make up a new television show each episode, just based on random hat drawings. I highly recommend it, but then I'm on it. Just read the reviews. They're all positive. And we also have Real History, which is a new show where me and 2 Irish people discuss historical movies and television shows and go into how does that actually relate to the time period. And I would say, even if you haven't seen the film or whatever, it is basically just using that as a jumping off point and talking about like, wow, what was life like during this or that time period? And I find it quite interesting.
Excellent. Yeah. A lot of great stuff. And please, if you haven't reviewed the show, please review the show. We did have that kind of bad review, right?
Oh, yeah, we did. So, well, it was 3 stars, I believe. 3 stars.
3-star. But it said that a co-host was a blowhard or something like that. But we couldn't figure out who was the like, am I the host and you're the co-host? Are you the host and I'm the co-host?
Now, it damn near tore us apart, Jim, and let's not reopen those wounds, because it insulted one of us and said the other one was fine, but didn't specify. And I swear to God, if we were in the same room, we would have come to blows, much like Junior and the Professor. We just won't get into it, I feel. But please help us erase this horrible memory of this conflict between me and Jim by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, please do that. Actually, I want to try to pull it up real quick if I can, but I just need where's the stupid feed URL? Let me see. All right, I got it here. I just need to refresh this. Apologies.
Oh, I have it.
People. Oh, you got it? Go for it.
So the title this is also quite difficult to interpret. This show is like Chinese food. And then underneath it says, you'll want more 5 minutes later. And I don't know if this is a saying or whatever, but that sounds like a 5-star review to me. Chinese food? Great. You want more 5 minutes later? Perfect. We got a whole feed. But then it says the co-host is a huge blowhard douche, and that ruined the show. Yeah. So 3 out of 5 stars. Thanks for that review. A review is a review, and we'll take it. But, if you want to leave your contrasting opinions, or who do you think is the blowhard? If you really want to stir the pot,
Yeah, a blowhard
Leave us-
juice here.
yes, I have a suspicion that it might be me.
And
But
going
please leave a review.
the Chinese food, I get like that's a common that's like a stand-up joke. Like, yeah, I just got Chinese food. Yeah, you're hungry 5 minutes later. And I guess that's not great for food where you're like, oh, wow, I'm hungry again. But if I'm listening to a podcast or watching a show,
You
and
just
it's
want
over,
more.
and I'm like, give me more. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Maybe that's why it's not a 1-star.
Yeah, I guess. Please help us interpret this through your interpretations in a review. But yep.
Oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I did want to read we did get a tweet after discussing the previous episode when we see the U.S. Marshals and Johnny Sacks, they bring him to the doctor or whatever. Yeah. And I was in agreement with you because I thought they were the same ones as well. But this guy on Twitter, Basher, he said, "Love you, Jacob, but those are not the same U.S. Marshals in the doctor's office as the wedding. All black, but the same to Swedes. LOL, JK." So
Right. LOL, JK, indeed. I don't remember anyone's face, so there. I'm constantly on the IMDb or Wikipedia trying to scramble for the names of current main cast members. So there. I'm sure it wasn't then, but yeah. They're
I
all
thought
the same
it was,
to me.
but yeah, I guess it wasn't. We didn't.
They're all the same to me. Those U.S. Marshals.
So yeah, we're almost there. It's exciting, but I'm gonna miss having a Sopranos episode to watch all the time. I just have to watch it again from the beginning. I do think, I don't know if people are gonna be excited about this or whatever, but I do think we should maybe go back into some other, like how we initially tried to do at the beginning, watch some other things in between seasons. So I do think even if we watch the last episode, I think maybe we'll want to take a look at either like some other Gandolfini movies or other mob movies and kind of try to discuss them in relation to The Sopranos. I think that would be kind of fun to keep things alive for a little bit longer.
Absolutely. And of course, we have The Many Saints of Newark coming up as well this year. So we'll have that to tide us over. Thank you, everyone who's it's 80 episodes of The Sopranos, which is great. But it's also 80 episodes of Cut to Black if you've listened the whole way through. And I really appreciate everyone for sticking it out with us, especially with me going through it on the first viewing here. And I mean, you said like, oh, we'll just have to watch it again. Like, I definitely will watch The Sopranos again, if only for the fact that I'll be able to watch the whole show in like a week if I want to, which is a pleasure that's been denied me. And I'm sure I'll see new things as I go through. And we may make some updates and things. But for now, there's just one more thing to say, Jim.
Oh, one more thing you say. What would that be?
Oh, it would be Cut to Black.
Oh, shit, I'm not black. Whatever. Just going to end it.